You know, a part of me really does hate reporting on this breaking news about Dragon Age Veilguard, but I have to share it with people who are both fans and not fans alike. I used to play them a crap ton when I was a teenager, and I've always hoped that the game would have a very solid ending by a game developer who was passionate about their story, but it would appear that I was wrong, because Bioware is no longer interested in providing the fans that stuck with it for all of these years with a satisfying conclusion to the game, and instead are more focused, in fact hard-pressed, on pushing trans LGBTQ+ and DEI ideology during every waking moment of their miserable existence. As you can see here, I've got a post from Learning the Law. Dragon Age Veilguard character customization features have been revealed. You can call yourself a Lamborghini and choose they, them non-binary pronouns. Where have we seen something like that before? Well, to be honest with you, in quite a few video games, but most notably Concord, which was a financial failure in every sense of the word, and Starfield, which pushed pronouns at the beginning of the game. And it looks like that's exactly what they're doing here in BioWare's newest title. They're pushing pronouns, but this is really just the beginning. That's not all, Manga Lawyer says. Players can now customize female characters' chests and add top surgery scars. He's asking for our thoughts. What are my thoughts? Well, I think that adding top surgery scars or any kind of surgical scars in a game about slaying Darkspawn, a dark fantasy video game taking place way back in the day in a fantasy setting, I just don't think that that sort of thing works. Neither do the inclusion of pronouns in a video game. I think that pronouns should not be in this game, and nor should a top surgery scar. How does that even make sense? Isn't the entire purpose of a top surgery to make it look like you didn't get top surgery? To make you look like a man or to look like a woman? You're not supposed to actually see the scars. That's something that's left over from the surgery, but they put that in as an option for you to be represented respectfully, I guess. And this person in this video who's talking about how important it is to be represented shows you exactly what kind of audience BioWare is hoping to attract with this game. And unfortunately for them, it's been proven by other video games that have become immensely more popular that this type of audience is almost non-existent. So listen to what this person says right here.
But he, him, she, her, and they, them, and then your gender is man, woman, non-binary. Love that. Love the inclusivity. Top surgery scars are also included in this for all of our trans and non-binary rooks out there. I absolutely was blown away by this. It's beautiful to see the inclusion in the game and to see yourself represented.
This is their thought process. They shill for BioWare. No matter what they do, they shill for EA, because as long as they have their representation in their game, this game's going to get a bunch of good reviews from these people, no matter what. Above all, above character, above story, above consistency with previous titles, all that matters to these quote-unquote fans is being represented by these companies that they shill for. And that's exactly what they're getting here. Now, is this going to translate into positive profitability for their game sales? I'm thinking not, although I've been wrong before. So you don't really have to take my word for it, although I have been looking at videos about this to see what people think about the gameplay in particular. Now, when I pulled up the video in question to show off some of the character customization that shows you these options, they're getting ratioed by the people that are watching them. So what's funny is that this isn't even a Ubisoft channel as far as I'm concerned, but they do show off some of the customization here, so I'm going to play it for you, and you can see on the left here that there is going to be an option to add chest surgery scars. I think you can also affect the size, the color. Check it out. So right there on the left, you'll see that window disappear. And there are your options right there. So you've got body scars, if you can see it with my mouse, scar shape, intensity, color, discoloration intensity, discoloration, smoothness, top surgery scars, off or on. And now, from what I'm understanding, the character customization in this game is pretty in-depth, so people are really happy with these features. Now, I did watch Maddie Plays' video because I wanted to see what other people thought about it, people that I feel have pretty reasonable, nuanced opinions on YouTube. And this guy says that he actually enjoyed the gameplay, and that's kind of my problem with this entire thing, is that there are certain things about this game that make it look appealing, and then there are other things about this game that make people want to swear it off. I'm looking at this game and seeing where they're taking it, and I see a game that is prioritizing agenda over the story of Dragon Age. In fact, in some areas I see that this isn't even using an atmosphere of dark fantasy. In only some areas you can see some dark fantasy elements, but it seems like they're taking this game in a completely different direction. And one red flag that I see that points to that is the inclusion of these pronoun options, which would not even exist exist in this kind of universe, nor would the inclusion of top chest surgery scars, as nobody would be trying to change themselves into a woman. In fact, you wouldn't even need surgery in order to do that. You could probably cast some kind of spell to change your gender, but what they want to do is take real life political controversies and these trans surgery ideas, and they want to shove them into people's brains, impressionable minds who play these games and shill for these companies, so that they can brainwash people into accepting that this stuff is completely normal. But none of this should be in a video game. Do you guys remember the original Dragon Age Origins, where you could be in a gay relationship with an elf, but you could also choose to kill that elf on the spot and never have him in your party from the get-go? And that's something that I often did, but even if I didn't do it, I would just separate myself from the elf and make sure that I don't have any dialogue options with them. That was the whole beauty of being in an RPG like this, because it had traditional RPG elements where you could choose to be either gay or straight. That's something that has been prominent in Bioware games, so don't let anybody tell you that that's not a thing. But to try and insert topics that are at best controversial and in this current day and age vilified by a very large portion of society, it feels very unwise to put this sort of DEI crap in this game. But DEI is exactly what these people want to push. Because as I was watching the Matty Plays video about this game, he was talking to Corrine Bush, who is the game director of this game, and I completely forgot about Corrine Bush, so listen to this.
Is there a plan for DLC or expansion type content for Veilguard at all?
Yeah, it's a question we get a lot. And I understand why. I'm a huge fan of Trespasser.
Now, something about this guy, who I realized is a guy when he started talking, was, hey, I actually reported on this guy before, and now things are starting to make a lot more sense, because when you go to the Bioware website and see the developer story behind Corrine Bush, who is the director of Dragon Age Veilguard, you discover some very interesting things about him. Now, I have reported on this in the past, as I mentioned, but it's important to go over this one more time so that you can see where their mindset is on Dragon Age and what they're prioritizing over everything else. So it says right here, in the idea of being who you want to be carries a particularly special meaning for Corrine. Now keep in mind, this portion right here is about his involvement in Dragon Age. So quote, as a queer trans woman, he says, now they say she says, but we know the truth, I have a perspective on the games that not everyone has. Dragon Age has long been a place where LGBTQIA+ folks can see people like themselves represented respectfully. So it's all about the LGBTQIA+ community, is it? It's inherently very queer, and queer by their definition is including top surgery options in a character customization screen, as well as the inclusion of pronouns, because that's solely an LGBTQIA+ thing, right? Not really, but Bioware is known for championing all kinds of things. Some of those things contradict one another, but can you really expect these people to have integrity after everything that you've seen from Bioware and from this game so far? Anyway, he continues, and it's such a rare thing for marginalized communities to have representation where we feel proud and powerful in how we are depicted. Now, not all of the blame can be put on this person for being in this position. Bioware is hell-bent on getting people like this to helm their games, as you will see momentarily after I finish this wonderful little excerpt right here. But it's so deeply meaningful for so many. I often get emotional when I think about what it would have meant for a younger version of myself to see someone like her in a game. A younger version of yourself was a boy, but yeah, let's not get carried away there, and as a hero no less. I hope we can be a safe place for our queer players to know they are not alone, that they are brilliant and worthy, that they are not only welcome but celebrated. Well, I will tell you this, those people are certainly not going to be alone when they're playing this game together, but they're not going to be joining the rest of society, because the majority of people who see this are going to be turned off by it. Other game companies have been trying the same exact thing, and they're seeing the same thing here now. That won't stop people from buying the game, but what this shows us here is that Bioware is pushing for diversity, equity, and inclusion in a way that other companies wouldn't even dare to even attempt. And this person is not just taking their trans ideology and subtly putting it in the game, they're making it an integral part of your character creation. So the inclusion of pronouns, the inclusion of top chest surgeries, these things are absolutely insane. Video games, especially dark fantasy games like Dragon Age Origins, are supposed to be about you forming relationships with characters, fighting darkspawn, and living a fantasy. It really is supposed to be just that, not taking a bunch of modern day tropes, modern day social ideologies, and inserting them into this game because you feel on the outside that you're doing a favor for your LGBTQIA+ A+ friends. And that's something that I saw happening with Space Marine 2 when they had Ashley Cooper pushing those same trans ideas in their writing. You have to keep an eye out for these types of people because you never know what they're going to try and do when they're actually in charge one day. The first time that this person was put in charge of this game, they took everything that they knew about trans ideology and they inserted it into this game without even thinking about it. It's the first thing you're going to see before you even go on this multicolored adventure. This is their idea of celebrating diversity, equity, and inclusion. Dragon Age, the Veilguard game director who describes himself as a queerosexual gendermancer, claims game is inherently queer, and that's what we just read. And the reason I bring this up is because I want to show you just how dedicated Bioware as a company is to diversity, equity, and inclusion, that they've been pushing it for a while, and that this person in charge of this game is just one step they are taking to manifesting their LGBTQ DEI utopia. As you can see here on LinkedIn, Bioware is pushing DEI programs and initiatives at Bioware. We believe in the potential of every human being. We celebrate diversity of thought, cultural differences, lifestyle, age, background, experience, religion, economic and social status, gender identity, and marital status, among other aspects. We invest in DEI across our business to empower people, actively foster inclusion in our communities, and shape the future of electronic arts. We are continuously working to embed inclusion across our systems, processes, and culture in order to, and this is where it gets fun, attract, develop, and retain great talent that can thrive and do their best work, develop relatable content and games, even though these games are just not relating to the target demographic, enable expansion into new and diverse markets, and bridge to better representation that authentically reflects players around the world. And that is why you see this happening in Dragon Age. Now, of course, this is in collaboration with EA, Electronic Arts, who are also pushing the exact same thing, inclusive culture. We embed inclusion in our practices throughout the employee life cycle, from how we attract talent to how we develop and retain talent to how we compensate and create a sense of belonging. We regularly review our people's programs and practices with an aim to keep them free from bias. We strive to create a work environment in which employees can do their best work without interruption, apparently, since nobody spoke up when they were putting pronouns and top chest surgery options in their newest game. Do you really think that this game is going to be good and that it's going to be positively received by people? I'm really just not seeing it right now, based on what I'm looking at and based on what you guys have heard me say. But we're going to keep going because there is more to show you. Bioware and Electronic Arts are all in on diversity, equity, and inclusion. That's why we're seeing what's happening with this game. As you can see here on Facebook this February, we are celebrating Black History Month. At Bioware, we are committed to fostering diversity, inclusion, and equity both in our games and in the real world. Fantastic. 1.4 thousand likes. People, of course, are celebrating this in the comments. They're so excited. Definitely not a bunch of bots. So let's take a look at another post from Bioware back in 2022. Bioware supports trans rights, women's rights, and bodily autonomy. Diversity, equity, and inclusion are a cornerstone for our studio and games. We don't consider these human rights up for debate, which means you can't have a conversation with us about it. Shut up. Take the diversity, equity, and inclusion without question and move on with your lives, Bioware says, because we're not going to hear a lick of it. But hey, it gets even better. Remember that Park Places article from a while back, which is actually a favorite of mine? It says EA-owned Bioware declares that Easter is a transgender day of visibility, so they can't even bring themselves to appreciate holidays that are supposed to be about Jesus' resurrection. They have to stomp all over that too, because that's the one way to please your customers and get them interested in your game, right? Stomp all over American traditional holidays based on the resurrection of Jesus Christ. It says today is Transgender Day of Visibility hashtag. They replaced Easter with that word because they care nothing of Easter and everything of Trans Queer Day. Trans people have always been a part of our worlds. We're proud to support them both within our games and in real life. And if you remember, they shut these comments off because they were getting so much pushback that it was insane. They couldn't keep up with it, and they didn't want people to see all of the negativity that they were getting. And that is perfectly perfectly reflective of what they said earlier. They said that it's not up for debate. We're not going to debate with you all and listen to your criticisms. We're not going to think about what is best for our customers. No, we're going to do our own thing. And our own thing is putting this man who is pretending to be a woman in charge of one of the most important video games in our company and have him botch it within the first 5 minutes of opening the game during a 6-hour playtest. It's just insane how they thought all of this or any of this was a good idea at all. We are dealing with gender pronouns, gender identity, even butt size is being affected. Look what happens when you push your glute size all the way to 100%. You know what's really crazy about this? This is probably a female character right here. And they're saying that you can't have a big butt in this game. Look, I'm just saying, I'm not the kind of person to use the slider and maximize it completely to make my character's butt huge and their boobs huge or whatever. But the fact that they're trying to put a smug, completely unnecessary glute size adjustment bar here when it doesn't even make that much of a change, it seems like they're just trying to insult the actual target demographic, to hurt them somehow, to make them upset, because who would do something like this? Why give a 100% setting almost zero change? And just so we can go a little bit more in depth on the gender pronoun thing, here's a screenshot from Wokehammer Els. I had to show you guys what this has here. So you can choose your pronoun, he, him, for your character. This guy picked a dwarf, and for gender, you can pick one of 3 choices. I'm guessing male, female, or non-binary, or whatever. I have no idea, but non-binary right here is one of the options. And it says on the right, and this is going to make you cringe, it says Rook's gender reflects how he sees himself. Does not affect gameplay. Rook's gender reflects. So apparently Rook is a himself, but just sees him as something else. That's an option that you can have. And it says it's not going to affect gameplay. They're trying to reassure people, no, don't worry. It's not going to be reflected in the gameplay. No one's going to have a dialogue option where they call you out and say, hey, aren't you claiming to be non-binary? This whole thing is ridiculous. The fact that they put this in here and caused so much trouble for themselves in the future is ridiculous. These people are not using their brains. They're only thinking with their wallets, which is something that gamers are supposed to do. The difference is that these people are trying to fill their wallets and we're just trying to save our money and focus on purchasing games that are actually trying to be fun. And it's such a shame. It's a shame that this game is going through something like this and that it's being helmed by somebody who clearly cares more about their own personal feelings than the satisfaction of their customer and fan base. The gameplay for this really does not look all that bad. Now, not everybody is on board with the gameplay. Some media outlets have called it out, but I've seen people who I find reliable in the gaming space seeing the gameplay as something they enjoy, that the world actually looks kind of pretty. The characters really don't look all that bad, although the Canary look absolutely awful. That's one exception. Another problem is that it looks very Fortnite-y. They've gone a completely different direction artistically with this game. It's not the same kind of dark fantasy, gritty look and feel that you've had in previous titles. They're definitely going the Fortnite direction in this game. The game really does not look all that bad, but when you've got the inclusion of these nonsensical things that are part of an ongoing culture war controversy and you're putting them in there because you want to push diversity, equity, and inclusion on the corporate side, it's putting all of the people who actually worked hard on your game in a very terrible position. Not only them, but also the person running your game, which you put there. So now your customers are seeing this happen to your game. You really think that this game is going to financially succeed after everything you've seen happen in the game industry lately? You might not want to put all of your eggs in one basket because we've still got a long way to go until this game is released. And from the looks of things, there is a strong possibility that this will be dead on arrival. But crazier things have happened, so keep your eyes open, your ear to the ground, stay vigilant, vote with your wallet, and that's all I've got for you guys in this video today. I hope you all enjoyed it. If you haven't had the chance to like it and share it with your friends, that would be awesome. And hey, if you're feeling ultra spicy, consider subscribing to my channel so that you're always up to date on what kind of thing I've got going on. I look forward to seeing you all in the next one. Later. Meow meow.